There we are. Good morning. First of all, can I welcome everyone to another webinar in our Startup Academy series in association with BT. Yet again this week, nothing's changed. My name is still Dylan Jones-Evans, and as well as being a professor of entrepreneurship, I'm the founder of the Startup Awards National Series, which we launched last year with over 2,500 entries, resulting in 900 finalists, which collectively were generating 300 million in turnover and employing over 5,000 people. And we're launching the search for the best UK startups in 2023. I'll be visiting 10 cities along the way to celebrate new businesses in every corner of the nation. And we're working with brilliant partners such as BT to help create this vibrant startup community that's so important for the economy. So we have the sixth webinar in this series. Time's gone quickly over the last month and a half. And I'm really delighted to welcome Chris Kenna to join us this morning. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
So let me give everybody a short introduction if nobody doesn't know who you are, and I'm sure there's few people of that. So Chris Kenna is CEO and founder of Brand Advance, a Startup 100 2020 company which connects brands with diverse audiences globally through insights, media, and creative, and more authentically engages these communities. Chris is also the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at Outvertising, the advertising industry lobbying group, and as a mixed race gay father is a strong advocate for diversity and representation within the media and advertising industry, as a member of the WFA Diversity Advisory Board, and I'm sure I'd love to ask you questions about this, is also the advisory board for the V&A Museums. Chris is an award-winning entrepreneur, having received the Innovator of the Year award at the second annual X-Forces in Business Awards, and was recently named on Empower's 100 Ethnic Minority Executives in 2020. So welcome, Chris. Really good. Just to let everybody know, Chris has flown all the way back from New York just for this interview. No, I'd like to say, but he's back on business in the UK for the next 2 weeks, but he's literally just walked. So he is slightly jet lagged. I'm sure that
I apologize for these big bags under my eyes.
And he had to find a new phone this morning to be able to do this. So Chris, thanks for everything again and for coming. So really want you to, I don't know if anybody else has heard the story, but I want to hear it again. I want to hear about, a bit about yourself and this amazing entrepreneurial journey you've been on.
Yeah.
2 years.
Okay. About myself. So I am now a 40-year-old man. So I've been on Earth for 40 years. But started my life on Earth. Why am I saying it like this? Anyway, in the Isle of Man, which so I was born on the little rock that's between mainland UK and Ireland that most of the time no one knows even exists. But and from there, unfortunately, but I sort of bounced around between family and care, so in children's homes, and that was across the whole UK, and then eventually ended up settling, joining the British Army. So joined the British Army just before I was 18, got posted out to Germany, and I was out there for 8 years, but while in Germany, obviously went to Iraq, went to Afghan, went back to Iraq, had 2 kids, Kyra and Jerome, and then, I'm skipping out a lot of life here. I suppose we'll dive into a little bits of it, but got blown up. I was in a coma for 8 weeks, got blown up in Iraq, woke up in Birmingham, and then embarked on a different life journey because I now have epilepsy, so I couldn't hold a rifle. It's not very good to hold a rifle when you're having an epileptic seizure. Well, it's not good for everyone else. So it's true. So yeah, moved into a different line of work. Moved into media first, so like a silly gigs like presenting Price Drop TV, and then got my own show on Sky and did a little bit of MTV presenting as well, and then moved into advertising, working for other companies, and then founded my own. And skipping back to the fact I have 2 kids, I suppose this is a very blunt way of saying it, but it's true. I have a black one and a white one, and I wanted to make an advertising agency that spoke to my black son as much as it spoke to my white daughter. So So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Really quick overview, and we can dive into any of them.
So Chris, obviously, you left the army, you went into media. How did you sort of stumble into starting your own business? Was it a stumbling or was it a plan?
It wasn't a plan. No, nothing in my life's been a plan. If I planned better, I wouldn't. Yeah, my life would be so much easier. When you just see that there's a problem and nobody seems to be doing anything about it, and the answer seems obvious. Yeah, it was more like that. Like I knew the disadvantage of being one color over another, or one sexuality over another. I could see that advertising was doing nothing about it. So yeah, I founded the company. It was 4.5 years ago. It was only me, but then the rest of the world, Black Lives Matter happened, murdered George Floyd and many others, and then the rest of the world seemed to have caught up really quickly. And now there's not far off 200 offers in 6 offices in 5 countries. Like you just said, I live in New York. But I will update your, and I do need to send you it then, because I think somebody's given you an introduction that's about 6 years old. So I'm not advertising anymore, but I'm still at the V&A, and you can ask me as many questions as you want about that. But I'm also, I sit on the board of the Met Police, I sit on the board of TikTok, and I sit on the advisory board at ITV. So yeah. So it seems like it's not a bad gig.
A lot's happened in the last 2 years then.
A lot's happened in the last 2 years, yeah.
Excellent. Well, but I am fascinated about this, Chris, because obviously entrepreneurs, as you said, perceive an opportunity, go for it to become successful because of that opportunity. Were you genuinely surprised that, given the scale and size of the advertising industry, that nobody else had sort of picked up on this, particularly given, as you said, some of the real changes in society that had happened because of Black Lives Matters, but also, the fact that that LGBT now became more mainstream now than it ever has been in probably the history of mankind.
Yeah. Yeah, I still am now that we have, we've got competitors, I suppose, more in the US than we do in Europe, in Germany, France, and the UK, where we've got offices. But yeah, the simple answer is yes. And I'm surprised every day by things that are not fixed. Like the first problem I ever had, and I've said this so many times, but I'll say it again, the first problem I ever got given was, we were on a riverbank next to a tree, each team, and then I was put as a team captain with 4 other guys. So there's 5 of us all together, and then there was other team captains. And we were told the first one, to get your team across the river, you've got 1 rope, 1 barrel, 1 plank, and the tree. And the rules are, only one of you is allowed to get wet. The others have to stay dry, and it's the first one to get their team to the other side of the river. And like, I sat there for a bit watching everybody. Well, just a bit, do you know what I mean? Whenever you got a competition, you want to check out the competition, see what they're doing. And I could see everyone trying to build a raft. And I sat there, and my team were getting really agitated. Like, come on, let's build a raft. They're going to beat us. And I was thinking about it, and just think, you can't build a raft with 1 barrel and 1 plank. Like, that's a seesaw. That's never going to get you across a river, bloody. So, and then it just dawned. And so I was like, wait a minute. So I tied the rope to the tree, tied the rope around my waist. I dove in, I swam to the other side. I got out, untied it off my waist, and pulled the string and said, all of you shimmy across it, I can hold you. And they all shimmied across it, and all 4 of them got across dry, and I was wet. That was the rules. One was allowed to get wet, the others weren't. Everyone else is still trying to build the bloody Britannia with 1 bloody barrel and a plank and a bit of rope. Like, no one was going to get across like that. I suppose ever since then, and that, I was just turned 17 when I had that, and I suppose every problem since then has been, that's looking at it differently. I didn't go through the same life as everybody else, and it's not a sad thing. I know it's called like a disadvantaged background, being in care or whatever, but really I think it was an absolute advantage, because everyone else is still trying to build rafts. you know, like every day they're all trying to build things fancy because that's what uni told them to do, and that's what, you know, they're looking around at everyone else, but everyone else is getting it wrong. So they're all building the same bloody thing, whereas we're just jumping in and diving. Look at that for a metaphor. I'm just going to say quickly, right? It was a good. It's a real story. Don't think I just made it up, but isn't it weird? This is not a real fire, and I'm getting so hot watching myself. Like, it's literally burning me, and it's not even real. See, that's advertising. That's how good it is. It can.
That's how good advertising is. So looking back over the last few years, particularly, you know, how Brand Advance has grown, as you said, to employ all these people, investors, and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
What do you think has been the key factors in the success of Brand Advance to date?
Oh gosh, definitely just me. It was all me. No, I'm joking. So it started, I've told you, you know, a snapshot of my background. So every employee after that was from my 6 degrees of separation. So, you know, we have a real diverse talent pool. Probably is one of the most diverse agencies across Europe, by far, actually. I definitely know it, you know, right? So that's been it, because a room full of problem solvers that don't get together normally, we've got offices full of people that have never been in advertising before we went and plucked them from wherever they were, because I couldn't find people. If you've got an advertising agency that helps people reach Muslim, Jewish, LGBT, disability, Black, Chinese, Indian, if you've got an advertising agency that specifically helps clients like Unilever and Google and Meta and L'Oreal to reach these audiences, then you need to make sure that your office is full of these, you know, people from them communities. Otherwise, how dare you even try? So, well, no, actually, I retract that last statement. You can still try, but I needed an office full of people from these communities, so I had to look elsewhere. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was a stat, it's probably not true anymore, but there was a stat that over 60% of the people that worked at Brand Advance had, their last job had been in a supermarket for a while, for about a year. That the job they had before coming into advertising was in a supermarket, and that was like, it was around about, it was 58 to 60%. Because we couldn't find them in the industry, and we needed to train them and bring them in. But now we've got offices full of people with superpowers that don't go back to my old metaphor. They don't build rafts, none of them. So I would love to take all the credit, but the only thing I was good at was building a good management team. And
we'll come on to that, and we'll come on to that later, obviously, because the theme. Let's take the other side of that, because obviously success is one thing, and you bring everything. What do you think has been the biggest challenges in building a business like Brand Advance?
See, another thing I told you, that the army had given me the tools that made me think different. Yeah. It also gave me a way of leadership that does not work in the real world. Telling people what to do, being a boss, it's really easy. Like, you just being a boss, you just walk in, like bang, 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 you do this, you know everybody's job. And even as you get bigger, you sort of, you know what they need to do, what the outcome needs to be. And you just sort of keep telling people. And for 8 out of 10 people, they won't mind that, you know. But there's 2 that will hate it and feel like it's bullying, or it's demanding, or it's demeaning, and they're right. Just because they feel like that, they're right. And that's been my biggest learning curve. And in the whole thing, you know, as we got bigger, I hadn't learned leadership, real world business leadership. I just still, I'm not saying like we weren't making everybody get out on parade at 6 o'clock in the morning in like #1 dress or anything like that, but so it wasn't like, wasn't running it like a military regiment, but could be, and I still can be, and I've had to learn a lot. Just the way, and you know, being more empathetic, trying to understand that not everybody, and actually the way that somebody gets to the end game, a task complete, might be totally different to the way you did it. Because in the army, you're sort of taught a method, and then you teach that method to everybody else, and that's the way it's done, because that saves lives. Do you know what I mean? And do it that way. Whereas in the real world, everyone's got a different way to get into the same outcome, and sometimes they might not get to the same outcome. You have to accept that and train it, or coach and stuff like that. So that's been my biggest, has been, I've failed a few times, and I will continue to fail, not as often, I hope not, but I've had a lot to learn on that. A lot.
And it, you know, like they say, failure is a learning exercise every time, and you don't describe it as failure, you describe it as something that didn't go right the first time.
Yeah, no, 100%. And yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I'm probably personally most proud of, and I didn't think about it at the time, is that I noticed that I was effing up. Because I think a lot of the times leaders sort of say, well, it's my company, if you don't like it, leave. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know why, and I'm glad I didn't have that particular trait. You know, I've got a lot of good and a lot of bad traits, I suppose, but I'm glad I didn't have that one, which was, well, I've got us this far, so I'm digging my heels in, and, you know, like it or lump it. Really, my answer to it was to step down as CEO of Europe, to move to the US and work in our office there. It's a smaller office. Well, it was a smaller office when I got there. It's not bloody small anymore. But you know, so that I could do it again and learn on the way and meet people and spend a bit less time doing and a bit more time absorbing, because you sort of never get, even though you can be at a load of events with lots of other business leaders and all, you know what I mean? You're never really there for long enough to learn from anybody. You just meet them. Do you know what I mean? And you might say, oh, I admire everything that you've done, but you're still just meeting them. You're never getting to absorb anything. You need to spend quite a bit of time with somebody to understand and to learn from. So that's what I've been trying to do. And seeing a psychologist as well. Is it psychologist? Psychologist makes me sound like a madman, which I probably am, but I think it's a psychologist. We'll go with that. So psychologist when you're always talking, which as a northerner I bloody am all the time. But when you're always talking about your upbringing, you know, the one thing with the founder is everyone wants to know the founder's story. Of course they do. They're special people. I love watching other ones of these where you're speaking with other people, you know what I mean? Or I love going to the awards and sitting down and chatting and finding out how people did stuff. But the one thing when you're a founder, and you're always talking about being a founder, and especially if you're a founder with a different path, a different journey, you're basically talking about trauma every day. It's all you're talking about. You're talking about, oh, this time when I was in care, this time when I was blown up, this time when, do you know what I mean? When I didn't have anything, and then I managed to claw my way to something. Whatever the story is, I can only talk about mine, but every founder's got a different story. You're always stuck in this loop of, okay, your success is over here, but you're still talking about when life was crap over here. Do you know what I mean? And so you got to look after yourself and others as well, and we need to look after each other. Because that affects your leadership and your choices and who you start having around you, because you're always stuck in a bit of a circle of, even though your life is looking all flash on the outside, and it probably feels it a bit in the inside, you're still always stuck in this loop of the bit that wasn't good, the bit before you did well. Do you know what I mean? Because that's the bit everyone wants to hear about.
And this, I didn't expect you to say this, but it is fascinating that you know that you're running this business, but you're talking to somebody outside the business about some of the challenges you have. I've started doing the same within the last 3 months. So hands up, I'll admit it, and it's something I never would have thought about doing. And it's not, you know, about being macho or anything like that. It's just thinking, well, I'm in control of my life, and I know what talking about. Have you found that whole process itself, as a leader in your organization, to actually bare your soul to somebody who actually doesn't know you, but is there to actually listen to you? Do you find that difficult?
Yes. There's one thing when you're running a business, especially when it grows really fast, and then you're doing a lot of interviews and a lot of media. You've got money and accolades and bloody bits of crystal flying at you from all over the place. Nobody's chucking stuff at me. You're winning it. You sort of have to have this hard exterior. Like, if you tell anybody that this is hard, does that mean you're not that good at it? Or is a client going to look at you and go, no, they could be a bit flaky, we might lose our money there, let's go somewhere else? Do you know what I mean? Like, 1,000 things come into your head of why you shouldn't tell anyone that you're having any difficulty right now. It's easier. I'd say two things. One is, probably as most entrepreneurs have got somebody that they're leaning on, a partner. I happen to know yours, and it's the other way around. He'll be leaning on you as well. Mine. I'm leaning on him, and I don't think he really leans on me. He seems to be some powerhouse, but I lean on him all the time. But yeah, I think it was nice to just say, actually, I don't know you. It's not going to affect my. Well, actually, sorry, leaf blower. It's not going to affect my business. Well, actually, it can only affect my business positively if I just tell you some of the crap that's going on, and you just tell. Like, maybe you could be what I was when I was 17, and maybe I'm trying to build a bloody Britannia right now. Do you know what I mean? Everything's so inside my head. I don't know. I'm not seeing it from the outside. And let's talk about some of the stuff. How do I talk about life and trauma, and how do I get rid of a way of doing things that was taught into me so rigidly? How do I break all that down and be better? And then if I'm better, maybe the company will be better as well, and maybe everything I was so scared of won't happen because I've got a better clarity. So the answer is yeah. I think it's the best thing. I think every leader should go and see.
It's just about just having the opportunity to have somebody listen to you who doesn't know you, and I think that's always the important thing. Otherwise, they'll be influenced by who you are or whatever. I just want to come on to the main subject, which we're here to talk about, but we've been talking about all these other things.
Everything else, sorry.
But no, it's great because it is important, particularly for leaders, to be able to take that step back and to be able to talk to other people, other founders maybe, or it doesn't matter. But what I think it's, you've talked about this difference, and you've alluded to already, between being a boss, i.e. somebody comes in, and then becoming a leader, right? And you've talked about the struggles of that. Tell us a bit more about that. How did you transform that? You said you came in with this army mentality, but then as the business has grown, you've had to adopt a very different culture.
And it's an everyday thing, because how can I put it? Do you remember that period where everybody went on that bloody unconscious bias course, and it'd be like half day or one day? I'm not knocking anyone that runs the courses, and then all of a sudden in that one day you forgot everything that was ever taught into you since you were born, because that's where unconscious bias comes from the second you could hear and opened your eyes, you absorbed things. Well, all of that actually mounts up to the leader that you're going to be, and so you've got to unpick everything, and I'm still doing it. Like, I still find myself going into a meeting and then starting the meeting and I'm like, oh, sorry, does anyone want, do you know what I mean? Like, I still sometimes, and we're better, and our retention in the company and staff is so much better, than the period in the middle where we were trying to figure it out. But I don't think I can tell you how to fix it. I can just tell you the journey I'm still on, which is, you know, understanding myself, understanding why do you think in a certain way, why do you say it, you know, and then if it feels like there is a better way to do it, then being told what that better way is. And you learn that from meeting leaders and there's like others, but meeting leaders and coaches and, you know, stuff like that. I've had a few different business coaches and stuff. And then
and what would you say that the main differences are between, you know,
boss
being
and a leader?
Leader, yeah.
A boss will tell you what you need to get done and how to do it, pretty much, or tell you the path to go. A leader will just say what the whole outcome needs to be and let everybody else find their own way there. A boss, I think a boss has less, is the right word, empathy? Sometimes I get the wrong words. I think it is. I feel like a boss is a bit less empathetic than a leader as well. That's another one. The main one that I just said, you know, that like giving that, letting people, you know, inspiring people to get the job done rather than telling them to do the job. That's a big one for me. That's probably the biggest difference. And so much sprouts off that, you know, people's, the culture of the company. And because when you start doing it, there's another difference as well. Like a boss does something and then expects everybody else under them to do the same thing. I'm the boss. I say we do it like this. Use all, tell everybody else to do it like this. I don't think true leadership does that at all. A leader sort of says, here's the vision, here's the strategy, this is where I need us to get to. I'm here to coach any of you, but actually I want you to come back to me with how you think you should take your team to that end goal. The end goal is 25 million turnover this year.
Yeah.
How are you going to take us there? Do you know what I mean? Whereas the boss sort of says, here's the strategy, this is how I want you to do it. Get all your guys out there selling, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's for me.
And obviously, you mentioned, you know, hitting the 25 million target. There's always a tension in that, obviously, because you've got KPIs as a business, like every other business, and you need to hit.
Yeah.
And it's how you get to that point, isn't it?
Yeah. And the one thing that you learn once, or the one thing, no, let me not talk on behalf of anybody else apart from myself. The one thing I've learned really quickly over the last year and a bit is that driving, being a boss, pushing it, bearing down, does not make you hit the KPIs any faster. It slows it down. When you actually, you know, when you have that confidence to step back, to let everybody do it their way, to let the different leaders that you've brought into the business actually go and lead and to bring the quality that you've seen in them when you brought them into the business, when you let them do that, you know, because you can't be a boss of 170 people, staff. Like you can't. You think you can, but you can't, you know. It's then you start to realize that actually you start to get benefit from that thing that you've seen in each of these different leaders you've got in each of your different offices or your different parts of your business. You start to get the benefit of what you paid them for. It's really weird. Do you know what I mean? Because you're allowing them to bring to the business what you hired, you've seen in them and wanted them to do because you watched them do it over there. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That whenever you've somebody,
we've talked with some of the other founders we've been having these sessions with about this is all about delegation and the challenge of delegation. Yeah. And obviously there are some founders, we call it, the academic term is founder's disease. It's not catchable, by the way. But it's this thing where founders still want to be in charge of everything. Yeah. Find it hard to delegate, find it hard to trust.
Yeah.
And as you said, when you've maybe got 1 or 2 or 3 people working for you, that's natural for the founder to do that. But when you get to the stage where you're growing, and it's usually when you get beyond 20 odd employees, that's it then.
Yeah.
to delegate. You can't control everything.
Yeah.
And did you find that difficult, Chris? Because
Yeah, I
as you
still
said,
do.
in that background where, you know, it would be what's it from, get this right, regiment, battalion, or whatever. So you have that where you have people in charge of a certain set number of individuals within the forces. Did you find it difficult to sort of delegate when you thought, oh, I can do this job better than anybody else?
I still do sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of staff now. I don't even know all of the staff, but I try to, but I don't. Yeah, delegation is a difficult thing when it's most difficult when you know in the back of your mind, and this never changes, that if you mess it up, if it goes wrong, it is on you. They all lose their job. It is on you. That actually it's not just the employees that you've got. You can times that by 3 per employee because they've got families and mortgages and mouths to feed and kids. So, you know, your 170 staff soon becomes 600-700, maybe 800 people. That one really bad decision that I make, it F's up their lives. Do you know what I mean? So it's hard to, and even when you delegate to other members of the team, they are still only staff. It's just a job for them. Do you know what I mean? They might love it and they might really, you know, put heart and soul into it. I'm not saying that, but in the end, the blame is not on them. It's not, and it can never be. It's on you. You're the founder. You make the final decisions. You know, so it's a lot. Like, you don't want to mess it up. Like, oh my God, imagine, you know, touch wood. Like, you did that to people because of bad decisions. Now, that doesn't always mean that every time the business fails, and certainly not him, or that sometimes it's just took out of your hands, you know. But and it wasn't any decision you made. It's just the way the world spun that day, that month, that year. It was just unforeseen circumstances. But still, that doesn't make it any easier. So yeah, I still sometimes, you've just got to really, you need to spend a lot of time with your management team. Let them become family. That's the way I did it, was get to know them so well that I knew that any decision they were making was coming from a good place. Yeah. Whether it was right or wrong, it was coming from the place it needed to.
And I was going to ask you that question about, you know, how important communication is in your team, that people understand what everybody else is doing. So there's no second guessing. Has that become important to you?
Yeah. And you know, the one thing that I'm still trying to get better at is I'm traveling a lot now. We've got offices in different countries. I'm traveling an awful lot. And the communication can break down, you know. Even recently, as in the last week or two, had with one manager where communication things, if you don't sit down and actually ever get to chat, you just both read into, like, how many times have you looked at a text or an email and you're in a bad mood and you read it and like, I can't believe they just sent me that, and then you read it the next day and you're like, they literally just asked how your day was going.
All the time.
Know what I mean? Like, so but that, when it happens with your senior management, then it can start, things, you can both start going in opposite directions, even though nothing's actually happened.
Yeah.
You know, nothing at all. It's just, it's never actually chat. So yeah. It's really important, and it's more important for us as the founders, as the leaders, to make sure that communication happens. That's that you were asking, what's different between a boss and a leader? There's another one. Like, making sure that communication throughout your company is happening effectively. Yeah.
So we naturally assume that all founders can be good leaders, but it's not always the case, obviously, because you know, does it come with a job? Are you taught the skills? So we've got obviously a lot of founders on here today. I mean, for those founders who may be thinking, probably I'm not a leader, but I've got a great idea, and how I'm going to lead people. What advice would you give them? I mean,
still go and do it. Take yourself on the journey. Believe me, like made it sound, I hope I haven't made it sound too negative. Yes, it's going to be hard. And don't let anybody tell you that it's bloody easy, because it is not. Even when you look at people and it looks like it is, and you see Mr. Bartlett and he's looking like everything he says just is a gem that falls out of his mouth. It's not, I always use these, or many other leaders as well, I'm sure they will, or everybody will say it's got difficulties, but the rewards so outshine it. The journey, the different person you, whether it's a success or not, go on the journey anyway. You know what I mean? There aren't many times. There's nothing else in life that compares to it, to the hustle and the thing that is yours, and whether it works or not, let's say it didn't, but you had 2 years off just going out there and doing something that was truly your idea, not working for anybody else, not doing anything. That itself is a good enough reason. But, there's nothing that says it's not going to work. It's just nobody can get involved in anything. Nobody can buy anything, or nobody can know about a good idea if they've never heard of it. And that's the difference between, I think, of going out and being an entrepreneur or being somebody that wishes that they had become an entrepreneur. It's just tell as many people as possible about your thing, whatever your thing is. And then if it's an interesting thing, people will want to get involved, whether it's as investors or whether it's as a consumer or whatever. So I would say definitely go and do it and learn the leadership thing as you're going along. Nobody woke up a leader. No one.
Yes, they say entrepreneurs are born, but I don't think leaders are. So
no, they're developed, and yeah.
Okay, you mentioned about, I was fascinated that you decided to step down from your CEO position to move to New York. Now, not many people would do that, and obviously you had to find somebody else to do the job. So tell us about that process. I know the business expanding and going to New York and to build the business up there, but to give up a senior position like that to do that, that must come an easy decision.
No, it wasn't. It was probably the worst, not the worst decision of my life. It was actually the best decision of my life, but it was the hardest thing to do. But I think if you're truly going to say to yourself and to others around you, okay, there's a little bit of stuff I want to go and learn, then how can I learn that while still, if I didn't have time to learn it in the first 4 years of being CEO, how am I going to learn it in the next 4 years of being CEO? Because the company's only getting bigger. I'm only getting a bit busier. Do you know what I mean? So something had to give. It was either I'm not going to go and learn this yet, I'm going to stay as CEO, or I'm going to go away. Like the one thing when you're a founder, I own the business. Nothing's going to change that. I could bring in 1 million CEOs. The company's still mine. Do you know what I mean? So, well, it's still mostly mine. There are shareholders and stuff like that now, but so that doesn't change. And I think we have this fear that not being the CEO makes us, and I, technically I'm the CEO's boss. I'm the chairman. So,
and it's your business.
And it's my business. Yeah. I choose the CEO, but then I get to step aside, go through the strategy with the CEO, decide what we're doing for the year, and then I get to step away and say, okay, tell me if anything goes wrong, or tell me when it goes right. Do you know what I mean? Actually, that's it. Actually, I would even say now, I just say, don't tell me if it goes wrong, just you fix it. Bye. Do you know what I mean? Like I'll keep flying the flag, but I don't need to know everything anymore, and I don't need to stress about it. And I'm going to go and learn some stuff, and then I'll bring it back, and hopefully we can use it. So, yeah.
So, diversity and authenticity. If I was going to use 2 words to describe your DNA, that would be it, right? And then you keep speaking all the time about the importance of these to all types of businesses.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the best way for founders to ensure that they're creating teams that are both authentic and diverse?
Okay. Okay, I'll be quite hard. I'll be quite blunt and harsh with my answer, I suppose. So first bit is, there are people that want to join your business that are from all communities. They just need to know that your business exists and know that there's a job available. So it's on you to stick it in front of them. It's really as simple as that. Don't just stick it in LinkedIn, stick it in classified parts or the jobs parts of Black publications, LGBT, different ability publications. So just, if you just wake up with that mentality, I'm going to stick it in different places, stick my jobs in places I didn't before, that will bring in a more diverse workforce. So, but authenticity, this is my harsh bit, is you can't hire authenticity. You can't do something and then all of a sudden you're an authentic business. That comes with doing the same thing over and over. So I have a bit of a what's it called when you have letters that mean something? No, whatever it is. But it's DMTR. I think if you do that, it's, so basically the D on DMTR is do it. So you say, I want a more diverse workforce, go for it. Stick the ads in places, train up people that might not know, have been from your service or that part, your industry, but bring people in from other industries, see if there's people that you can cross-skill and bring them in. So do it, then mean it. So, if you say you're going to do this and you want to have a diverse workforce, then mean it. Make it the fabric, make sure that you've got the policies and the procedures in your company to actually keep these communities in the company. So do it, mean it, then train it to everybody else, and then repeat it. Do that, DMTR, do it, mean it, train it, and repeat it. And that's where authenticity comes from, because you can't hire it.
Good. I'm going to go on to some of the questions now. We've got some questions coming through. And they're far better questions than I've asked you, so they're going to be. So the first one is, the saying goes that most employees leave their bosses, not their jobs. Something I can empathize and sympathize with. So why do you think that is the case, and how can it be avoided?
It's the case because bosses aren't very nice people to be around. They might be good for the company for a period of time, but that doesn't mean that they're good for the culture. And how can it be avoided? Bosses can push themselves to try and become leaders, and then people will want to stay. The saying doesn't apply for leaders.
Yeah, but it is true, and I think that there is I think a real challenge now with managers becoming leaders.
Yeah.
And as you say, the problem is in some cases managers become bosses.
Yeah.
And not leaders.
Yeah.
So they're appointed to senior positions within organizations, but they're not leading the organization. They're merely managing it.
Yeah.
That leadership to take it in the direction it wants to go.
Yeah. But they are appointed to an organization that should have a leader at the top that's instilling leadership throughout. So that's our job. That's on us.
Yeah. Another question is, what can I do to help resolve a bad boss scenario if we have no HR department?
Say something good, Chris. Say something good. I suppose you just got to tell them.
Protect bad bosses.
Yeah, they do. Because HR, I mean, I see it from both sides. As a business owner, I want my HR department to protect the business, and on many occasions to protect me. You know what I mean? It's why I brought them in. But I suppose the first thing is to have that conversation, mediated, have somebody else in there.
Yeah.
And have, don't have it in a pub. But calmly and collectively have the conversation. Give people a chance. They might see, there will have been ex-employees that will have thought I would never be the person to have the conversation about, you're actually not doing that well. Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't till one of them had it that it broke my heart, like literally. So yeah, give them a chance. Well, not give them a chance. Well, yeah, give them a chance. Have the conversation. And then then you've got decisions to make after that, haven't you? Do you want to stay there? Is there a way to move to a different department? Do they need to go and you need to stay? Is the argument in that favor? And if so, have that argument with whoever you need to about, I feel like I bring more here. This is not good for your business, and I want to be good for your business. You'll be hard pressed to find a business leader that doesn't respond to that. I want to grow your business with you. I feel like this is a blocker for me.
Yeah. Sue Wallen's saying, and I think we'd all agree with this, so you have a lot of self-awareness and empathy and understanding, but how do you deal with senior managers in your business who maybe don't have those abilities and could be upsetting people in their reporting structure?
Yeah. We've had that. And some of it was the leftovers from me. Do you know what I mean? When I was maybe not as great, and they thought, well, they can just be a bit more like that. You lead, so you show, how I was, you see how I am now, and let me tell you the results, the tension and all of that in senior management. So I'm showing you it works. And then secondly, you sort of have to say, this is the new business. This is, or this is the way I want the business to run. This is the culture I want to create. This is the experience I want each of the employees to have. And if you're not able to help with that, then sorry, maybe this isn't the best place for you. It has to be that harsh. Because, and another thing as well for all the entrepreneurs watching this now, you may think it, but and I got caught in this a few times, but believe me, and people that are just the people that aren't the entrepreneur but have helped with businesses are not going to like this, but there is no employee, including yourself, that must stay in a business for a business to survive. There is somebody else out there that can do it. There is somebody else out there that can come in and fill that void. There is. Not even you as the founder have to be there for your business to survive. So once you get that in, once that actually sinks in and you realize that, then it opens you up to the possibilities of anybody being part of your business and moving or removing anybody that's not helping your business. Once that sinks in, it took a while for it to sink in. But when I realized not even I was the thing that held it all together, not really, then you can really flourish, because then all shackles are off and you're like Red Bull, you get wings and you just
good advertising again.
Really good. Yeah,
you remember it. So going back to your early days, John Martinez has got a couple of questions, so I'll do it in two parts. So the first one was there one event or situation when you started up that allowed you to find sustainability as a company? And related to that, I'm assuming, how was it difficult to go from bootstrapping the business to funding the business and getting it funded, and what changed as a result?
So I still love I'm start with the second question first, because I like it. Even though we're a funded company, I still like bootstrapping sometimes. Like, you don't have to splash cash just because you got it. Do you know what I mean? Like, especially less with the way the companies run, more with the way I run myself. Like I like the hustle. I love it. Like, so sometimes if I can find ways to still bring that back and go and do it, I'll do it. Now, the difference is we are a multi-million-pound company, and people that put money into it want to see returns, and they want to see their money being used, not just sat in the bank, because you need it for the growth. So you do need to become a mature business, but that doesn't mean like a business can't keep that. I know it's said a lot, isn't it? Oh, we've got 5,000 staff, but we're still a startup at heart. And you say, well, you're not a startup. You've got 500, got 500, 5,000 staff. You're not a startup. But what I think they mean by that is when leaders say, I am still an entrepreneur. You know, that hasn't changed. I'm still hustling every day. It just so happens when I hustle, the rest of the company is actually quite a considerable size. We're able to hustle for bigger things and do more for our clients, but it's still a hustle. That's what I think they mean by it. But yeah, ask me the question again. I feel like I've gone off the question. Ask me the question again. What was the actual wording?
Hold on, let me find it because I'm just taking it off because I've got to do these questions.
Oh.
Yeah, John, basically, it was about sustainability as a company. What situation events enable you to find that, you know, to make your sustainable business?
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing that Joe means sustainability as in keep the company going rather than save the planet. Yeah. Although we should be doing both. Finding that one client, actually, and they're not the client that spent, but the client that kept talking about working with us, even though they didn't actually spend that much. That, I think, really helped. If you can find whoever the biggest in your industry is, and for us it was Unilever, whoever the biggest in your industry is, you know, if you can, try and do stuff with them, especially if it doesn't cost them anything, because then they'll shout about it that they're doing stuff with you. That is what I've found has been our little way to keep going. Was if business started to slow down, I would just divert my attention to go into the biggest player and then say, no, let's do a webinar, let's do a thingy, you know, don't worry, I'll pay for it, I'll do it. Do things that didn't cost, because that was the hustle, but they didn't know that. It looked like it did, you know, it looked nice and fancy. And then, what we found was if we continued to do that, other potential clients were looking at us going, oh, if they're working with them, then we should probably, and they would start to reach out. And that's how we kept it going. So it wasn't one particular thing, but it's one particular method. And I hope that helps.
Yeah. Question from Amber Moon about the next stage. So what are your top tips for managing a company through a huge period of growth and change, which obviously you've experienced over the last 4 years?
Strap in, learn, mold, change. I don't know what. I mean, for me, next is just, you know, we've got 5 or 6 offices. I want 25 offices. You know, I think we should be everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's my next goal. And like I said, just keep, you know, to keep, obviously one side is for us to keep providing a better service. We keep innovating, we keep building new technologies and stuff that help us to do our job better for clients, you know, help clients speak to more people, stuff like that. But then, yeah, I think it's a really hard question. Because I don't see an end game. And you know, I get asked this a lot. It's like, so especially by investors, and they're like, you know,
when you're going to exit and when you're going to leave. And
yeah. And I get that for some people, but I've always found that really weird. Like it's a weird notion to think that I'm already thinking about leaving.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Even though, you know, if the right offer comes along, yeah, maybe if you know, but it just, I personally have always found that a little bit, because I'm in it. I'm so in it. Like, this is everything I wanted to do. I wanted to leave the place, the world. I wanted to, the industry better than I found it. So I can't talk about leaving it all the time. Or my exit strategy is, my strategy is growth. My strategy is services and providing the best they can. And my strategy is building a great team and learning and teaching and you know, learning and becoming a leader so that the team is the best team it can be, you know. Learning from people like Ben Francis from Gymshark, you know, because he sort of did what I wish I did, where he wasn't the CEO for the first few years. Do you know what I mean? He brought in a guy straight away to be the CEO. He's only just took the job. Maybe I should have done it that way around instead of have to just step down as CEO of my own company and then taken the mantle back again, you know, if I do it in a few years. Yeah, I hope that answered.
Yeah, it did. So one other question now, and it's very topical because obviously we've got one of our anonymous attendees has said that they have employees who are struggling in the current economic climate. It's affecting their work, childcare, wanting to work from home to save money, and they're trying to be sympathetic to the situation, but how can they ensure that work is also a priority at the same time?
See, this is a difficult one. So we've had, I can only talk from our side, we've had the privilege of being able to give a little payment to all employees under a certain salary. You know, so we tried to offset some of the cost of living. I think, and it's very little payment. I think it's like 150, 200 quid or something like that. That's gone to all employees that are on a certain salary threshold, just to try and help. Does it really help? Probably. Well, 200 quid in your pocket's better than, you know, none. So, but I don't know the answer. I mean, I suppose we've got to be, you know, we're talking about leadership. We need to be supportive. But you're right, you have your business to run as well. And actually, if everybody is too focused over here and the business isn't getting, and the work isn't getting done, then actually it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because then there's not enough money coming into the business. You need to let people go. And it wasn't actually down to the downturn. It was just because everybody was too busy over here talking about the problem, you know. I get that. So I suppose you sort of just need to have the empathetic but honest conversations of, you know, let me know everything I can do that allows you to come into this environment and, you know, be able to do your job to the best of your ability. Tell me what you need. Do you need me to change work times to go for new childcare? Do you need, you know, do you need to bring your kid to the office? Are they noisy? Bring them, you know, like whatever it might be. Just, yeah, I would personally now try and have that conversation have it on a group basis and then on an individual basis as well, if possible. If you've got quite a few employees, then get some other members of staff to do it as well. But just sort of tell me the things that are a barrier to you just getting, you know, to being able to just really enjoy your work. And don't say about, don't word it like this. One of the things I've had to learn to do is don't word it about being for the company. Word it about, you know, because it is be for them. If you can remove their barriers, their work will be great for the company. But it's about them, you know. And then they won't feel like, oh, you just want me to work more or blah blah blah. You don't want to hear my problems because you're really wanting to help your employees. But you know what? Tell me the barriers. I will try my best to remove them, or I will remove them, and then that'll leave the space for the work to get done.
So we've got about a minute left. So I'm going to ask you one final question. Chris Kenna, what would you do differently if you could do it all over again?
Oh, I sort of already just answered that. A person who I very much admire, I would have done what he did. Right. I wouldn't have been CEO from the beginning. I'd have brought a CEO in. That would have been I suppose you don't need a CEO when there's only one employee. So it would have been my between 10th and 15th hire would have been the CEO. And I would have brought somebody in that's done it before once or twice. And I would have sat back. Well, not sat back. I would have still done what I like doing, which is this, you know, talking about the business, going to meeting clients, and I would have still done that. But I would have learned from somebody what actual business leadership is. That's what I would have done very much differently. And a lot of the problems that we've had in our growth probably we would have had other problems, you know, of course, that you're never going to have like just a clear run. But maybe some of the problems, some of the mess ups that I've personally made or the company has made, maybe we could have navigated ourselves to them a bit better.
Good. Chris, where's the hour gone?
I know.
It's been a real pleasure, as always. You deserve a good rest now. Get over your jet lag.
I know.
And thank you for all your answers, as usual, honest, practical, and more importantly, from the heart, which is really important.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.